Well, I had worked up some moves for the homily, but after Harley, I may hold off on that for several years. So I do want to welcome everyone today. In today's gospel from Mark, we hear a familiar scenario. It is late in the day. Jesus and those making efforts to be the disciples are hanging out with the locals near the Sea of Galilee. Not only are the locals attempting to make sense of this new way of living from a place of unconditional love, to move beyond simply obeying the religious law, to being able to live in the spirit of the law, which ultimately is always about love, but to commit to having a preference for those who are poor, to welcome the stranger, to forgive and to be forgiven. That entire new message being delivered on the shores of the Sea of Galilee was turning the locals and probably the disciples, turning their practice of religion upside down. It was an entirely different message. Unbeknownst to the disciples, Jesus invites his disciples to join him on one wild boat ride in order to simply cross over to the other side. A violent storm develops, which is not uncommon late in the day on the Sea of Galilee, which is ringed by hills that serve almost as a funnel for the wind. The boat is about to capsize. And the one who invited them into this most frightening adventure, we hear is tucked away in the back of the boat, taking a nap on a pillow. Quite likely not in particularly calm and hushed tones, yet still addressing him as teacher, the disciples say to him, again, inquire of Jesus, if he happened to notice or cared that they were about to die. In one fell swoop, Jesus wakes up, rebukes the wind much like he would do had it involved a demon or an unclean spirit. Jesus quiets the sea immediately. Then Jesus, without missing a beat, curiously begins to ask the disciples why they were so terrified. He then concludes with taking an inventory on their level of faith, or perhaps their lack thereof. Not so much a rebuke, but again seizing on what became a teachable moment. How to move from fear to faith. It's a question all of us face sometimes on a regular basis. Perhaps within our church, perhaps within our nation, most assuredly within our own private lives. It's obvious, if we think about it, that we have plenty to be anxious about, at times fearful. So how to make sense of this story today? It would seem that the questions that Jesus is asking are meant to point the disciples toward a deeper understanding of the Creator God. The Creator God at work in their lives, as well as the life of Jesus. It would seem to be about a God that creates and recreates through a specific lens or pattern of death to rebirth. Death to rebirth. It repeats itself over and over throughout our life. Jesus does not spend time and energy trying to explain away the disciples' feeling of terror, but he redirects the disciples' attention toward the one who is ultimately the creative power at the very center of the universe. Helps us understand a new definition of faith as being a verb as opposed to a noun. It is not about how much faith. It is about drawing on your own faith to be moved along in your life. Jesus is able and willing to lead them through their fear into this deeper sense of trust, empowering them to cross over to a new place of awe and wonder at the one whose recreative power is made manifest in this ordinary experience of just another day in the boat with Jesus. And in many ways, that describes our life. Just another day in the boat with this Jesus. As today's disciples, we are frequently in those unfamiliar times and circumstances that have a way of calling us to a new awareness and perhaps also a new response. To be willing to cross over to that new place of awe and wonder, to be simply open to change, which is a challenge for many people. From time to time, I have asked us to consider the metaphor of seeing our life as a dance. Speaking of dances, this last week, I had the honor of celebrating the life of another member of our parish. Her name was Betty, and she loved to dance. She was 91 years old. She'd been living in an assisted living care center. The aide went in to check on her midnight-ish to see that she had tucked away in bed. Went in and Betty was there in her favorite chair, wearing her favorite red tartan plaid nightgown, watching her favorite show. It would appear to have been Animal Planet. The aide shook her. It's time to go to bed. Betty had passed. Betty had met the presence of her loving God while sitting in her favorite chair, wearing her favorite nightgown, and watching her favorite show. In celebrating her granddaughter identified Betty as being a safe place, that she was a woman who had a unique way of letting you know that you matter. To consider, again, taking time each day to saying yes to God's invitation to a dance. Betty did accept that last invitation as she went into the arms of a loving God. To make a conscious choice each day to be mindful of the one that ultimately leads the dance of our entire life. This invitation to the dance, to the divine dance, is inherently connected to our baptism, which is inherently connected to our being of service to one another. This is a critical understanding for us attempting to do the dance. To know the difference between always choosing what I want as opposed to what we need. To know the difference. To not stay stuck in that storm of just what I want. To be able to allow yourself that dance, that ability to take a look actually at the importance of what we need as a community. We can ill afford to choose to be slaves to our times of uncertainty, to our times of pain and loss, to those times we just choose to be along for the ride. I define slavery as our identifying that pain in our life, that fear in our life, whatever we just can't seem to get our arms around, turning that into a boulder and rolling that boulder up the same hill day after day, year after year. It's a form of slavery. To lean into the divine dance is a way to discover that self-giving can be a time of self-fulfillment, even in times of pain, even in those times that we are terrified. It is precisely in those moments that we hear the invitation from the one who loves us, may I have this dance. May I have this dance with you. With you. Think of the importance of that. Think about hearing that invitation. To lean into the dance in a way that we can see in a life of service as being also equal to a time of self-discovery. Again, even in times of pain and uncertainty. How many times do we see a call to service as more as an imposition? It's not an imposition, it's a call to dance. Genuine discipleship does call us to live in a way that will require a willingness to live with courage and to live with integrity. It's an important time for us to step out of the slavery of our own excess and our own abundance. To step out of the slavery of needing to see life as my way or the highway. When it comes to being slaves, we are most often also our very best slave driver. On this Pride weekend, we are challenged to move from fear to faith, to being of service to all people, and to celebrate diversity. Father James Martin, a faithful advocate for the LGBTQ+ community, reminds us to what Jesus never said. Feed the hungry only if they have papers. Clothe the naked only if they're from your country. Welcome the stranger only if there is zero risk. Help the poor only if you find it convenient. Love your neighbor only if they look like you, and I would add, love like you. In closing, think about what it would be to go to God, sitting in your favorite chair, wearing your favorite nightgown, and watching your favorite TV show. And to know that those around you had learned well from you and that you had loved them well. It seems to me if we can lie down at night knowing in our hearts that we have made someone's day a little bit better, we know we have had a good day. And who does not deserve a good day? I close with Dance of Life. I want you to think about what's pressing down on you most in your life, either in your personal life, your life here in the nation, in the church. To be able to hear that invitation once again, may I have this dance. Giver of life and creator of all that is lovely, teach me to sing the words to your song. I want to feel the music of living and not fear the sad songs, but from them make new songs, composed of both laughter and tears. Teach me to dance to the sounds of your world and your people. Help me to try to follow your leading, to risk even falling, to rise and keep trying, because you are leading the dance Amen.